Alright, so welcome back everybody. So for this video, I'm going to share with you all my 10 favorite cards from Creature Caravan. Creature Caravan is one of my most favorite games. It's in my top 10 favorite games. I just really love this game a lot. And so, I thought there's a lot of cards in this game, and there's a lot of cards I really like. And honestly, it was hard choosing my most 10 favorites because I like a lot of the cards in this game. So many cards. So let's get started, and I'll share with you the 10 favorite cards that I like to play into my caravan. Okay, starting with number 10, the Dino Wagon. Now, it's a cheap card to play, so that's one of the reasons why I like it. It's cheap. I'm not going to get very many points for it, but it's a nice way of just getting around and working your way to Eastery, because you can go anywhere for the cost of a 6 dice, which is nice. Just an easy way of getting around and very cheap way of getting a card played that will help you reach Eastery much easier. Of course, if you can manage to get yourself a fruit token, then this card is even more useful, as the fruit here would drop the pips of the dice on the card to 1, so that I could put any number from 1 to 6 onto this card. So that's nice. So yes, this is my 10th favorite card, Dino Wagon. My number 9 is Crystal Furnace Robot. Now this is one of the easiest ones you can play that will give you a new dice to play with. Okay, so this is the only one in the top 10 that made the list, because it's just happens to be the cheapest one to play. I mean, it's not easy getting coins, but considering you can just discard a few cards to get yourself a coin, it's not such a hard thing to do. So this is one of those cards that if you find it and you get it in your hand early on, it's something you want to play as soon as possible, because it's an easy one to play. Now, it's still worth a victory point on its own, but if you can just if you happen to find yourself a Toadfolk, if you can get at least one of them, then you can make this card worth 5 victory points as a nice little added bonus. So that's cool. So that's my number 9. My number 8 is Toadfolk Fisher. Now this is another easy one to play early on in the game because it only costs 3 bread. It's only going to be worth a victory point, but what I like about it is whenever I enter a lake space, okay, I get 3 bread. So nice little bonus for entering those lakes. And because you can pretty much easily get into a lake just by putting a 2 dice here or higher, this is just an easy early way of getting bread in the beginning of the game just by simply entering a lake. You don't have to stay in the lake. There's another card that lets you get free bread if you camp in a lake. That's why I like this one way more, because you just have to enter the lake space to get the bread. So it's a good one to get if you can get in the beginning of the game. Okay, so that's 10, 9, and 8. So this is my 7th favorite card, the Serpent Trainer. Okay, so it's another one that's pretty cheap to play. All right, and it's worth a lot of victory points on its own. It's worth 8. That's a lot. That's a nice little card for sure, just getting that many points. But it's also going to give you 4 additional points if you can track down, okay? No, sorry, it's only going to give you 8 points if you can track down 4 or more deadly cards. So it's not worth any victory points if you don't have deadly cards. You need to have 4 of them. If you do, this is worth 8 points. It's still nice, and I definitely usually am tracking down some deadly cards. But what I really like about this one is that whenever you attack, you get a bag and you get a bread. Okay, so you're incentivized to attack. So normally when you attack, you get bread, because you do. And when you attack, you get victory points, right? But this just furthers your incentives to attack one of those ember golems, because then you get all that nice little stuff too. So just a really good card. I really enjoy. If I can get it, I'd like to play it into my caravan. I find this one very useful. Okay, so 10, 9, 8. Sorry, 10, 9, 8, 7. So this is my 6th favorite card, okay? It's pretty expensive on the bag department, okay? But bread department, it's pretty cheap. This is not something you have to necessarily get in the beginning of the game. This is something I wouldn't mind getting towards the end of the game or playing later. So maybe after I've played a lot of cards, because you can only have, what, 12 cards in your caravan normally? This is one of those cards that I wouldn't mind playing at the end of the game, okay? Because what it does is it ignores negative victory points on cards. So that's awesome. Now there's the Rat Swarm, for instance, which I usually like to play with. It didn't make my top 10, by the way, but it's going to be minus 5 points if you don't get a certain amount of Nocturnal cards. But you don't have to worry about getting all those Nocturnal cards if you have this card, because it just ignores all negative victory points on cards, which is nice. And then if you manage to make it to Eastery, and you camp at Eastery, as in you made it there, then you're going to get 5 points for this card too. So it's just, for victory points' sake, it's just a nice one to get if you can, especially if you're playing a lot of cards that give you negative victory points. It's definitely nice to have. So my 5th favorite card is Zoological Scholar. This is an easy one to play. Now, you don't have to play it at the beginning of the game, but it's definitely worth it if you can try to get this one played at the beginning of the game. Like I said, it's fairly cheap. Like I said, it's fairly easy to get coins. At least, discard a few cards you're not going to use for a coin, and you start with one. So it's fairly easy to play in the beginning of the game, all right? And yes, I have imaginative here. So I don't like the word magic in the game. I prefer not to have it in the game. And so since the Zoological Scholar doesn't necessarily have anything to do with magic anyways, I just decided to, well, some of these cards don't have anything to do with magic, but I decided to change the word magic to imaginative. There's a Toadfolk Saner, for instance, not necessarily a magic card, but I transformed it into imaginative for that reason, and got rid of the cards that definitely exude magic and other unwanted stuff in my game, and got rid of those cards. But if you think I got rid of a lot of cards, you'd be dead wrong, because I still have a huge amount of cards here that don't bother my conscience whatsoever. This game is awesome. There's so many good cards here. I only got rid of like a few, less than 10 cards. So lots of cards to play with. But yeah, anyway, so let me get back. So this one is good because you can get 12 points for it if you can get one type of every type of card there is. You have to get Folk, you have to get Deadly, you have to get Machine, you have to get Shy, you have to get Imaginative, you have to get Delver, Giant, Tiny, Nocturnal, and Flying. And if you can manage to get all of that, which is fairly easy because a lot of the cards have 3 or 4 terminology on them sometimes. So it can be fairly easy to do that. But then, if you do play this early, for any Deadly card, any Shy card, or any Nocturnal card you play, the cost for the food is 2 fewer. So this is a good one to get in the early game for sure for that reason. But hey, if you get at the end of the game and you have all of those awesome stuff already, you've got everything you need, it's a nice little way of getting tons of extra points for a very cheap cost. So that's why Zoological Scholar is my number 5. Okay, so the Grass Queen, hold on, let me just make sure this is my, yep. So this is my 4th favorite card, the Grasskin Queen. So it's fairly easy. It's got, you're gonna have to get a bag, 2 coins, and obviously a bread, for sure. Now, this is not a card necessarily that I have to play in the beginning of the game. It's something I would probably play towards the end of the game, just, make sure I have space for it, But what's really fascinating is this text here. Tiny cards do not count against your card limit. So you're only allowed to play 12 cards into your caravan. 12. Only 12, okay? And that can be a bummer. Sometimes I want to play more than 12. Sometimes I have enough resources to play more than 12. But if you have a lot of tiny cards, and you also get her, the Grasskin Queen, all of your tiny cards don't count against your card limit, against your caravan limit, to the amount of cards that your caravan can carry. I absolutely adore this card. That's why this is my 4th favorite card, just because of that effect. Now, the extra points is a nice benefit. If you're playing this card and you have some tiny cards, most likely, you will most likely have 4 or more tiny cards anyways. So the 11 points is an additional benefit, an additional bonus to an already awesome card. And then each turn you can reroll 1 die, which is mediocre, but the rest of it is awesome, and that's why this is my 4th favorite card, because it's just amazing. One of my favorites for sure. Okay, so my 3rd favorite card is the Fish Folk Captain. Now, this one is a little expensive, 10 bread. It's not the most expensive card out there, and it also only gives you 1 victory point too. But what's really cool is if you have 3 or more nocturnal cards, then each turn you get to draw a card, but you also get a bread and a bag at the beginning of each turn. That is amazing. I love this card. That means, of course, because it is expensive, you most likely won't play this in the beginning of the game, because you want to play some other cards. But usually you're going to want to wait anyways, because you're going to want to wait until you already have at least 2 nocturnal cards. You're probably going to want to get 2 nocturnal cards first before you play this, because it's also nocturnal. So that way you get this benefit on your next turn after playing it. I love this card so much. But it's not necessarily a have to play in the beginning of the game, because you're going to, like I said, you're going to want to track down a couple of nocturnal cards before you play this. And, of course, if you don't somehow manage to play those 2 nocturnal cards, then playing this card is pointless, and so that's why you shouldn't play it before you have the equation you need. Still, I absolutely love this card. It's definitely one of the best engine building cards in this game. Okay, my 2nd favorite card is the Sand Serpent. It's a little expensive, and of course, it's going to cost a couple of coins. And it does add you a place to put a dice down to help you take on those Ember Golems, okay? And it adds 2 to your attack, which is great. I love that. But what I really love about this card is you may move diagonally. That is so useful in this game. Sometimes you just want to get around a spot. You might not have, you may not want to waste 2 dice to, trek through any terrain, and you might not have any cards played yet that let you trek through any terrain cheaper. So this can help you get around those, issues. But if you're also trying to avoid, the Ember Golems from the threat locations, right? If you're trying to avoid these guys, then obviously this could be very beneficial into avoiding these Ember Golems. Of course, you're still going to want to fight them, and obviously the Sand Serpent is awesome because it helps you fight them, and I just love the snake, period. But you're not likely going to be able to attack every single one of these that come along your way, because you can only attack them on threat locations anyways. And so it's nice to have the option to avoid these, if at all possible, without, going the long way around them, if you will. Because you might still be able to avoid them normally, the Ember Golems, but you might spend a couple extra turns going the long way around, if you will. And so this just cuts that problem, down to size. That's why this is my 2nd favorite card, the Sand Serpent. And my most favorite card is the Bat Rider, okay? Now, it's not expensive to play, which is nice. It's worth a couple of points. It's got Nocturnal on it, which is another reason why this one's a good one to have for the Fish Folk Captain. But what's really cool is if you can play this, if this is one of your first cards you play, then every time you play a card afterwards, you're going to get a bread. That's awesome. You're going to get a bread. That is cool. So beginning of the game, this is an awesome card to get for sure. But it's also awesome to get for sure because for only 2 pips on your dice, you can traverse any terrain you want. I love this. Oh, this Now, of course, you know, this guy allows you to avoid certain things and maybe certain terrains. But if you don't get this guy and you get this instead, you know, you might not necessarily need to play the Serpent if you have the Bat Rider. So these cards are awesome, but I don't have to play both if I can just get one of these. But I like this one more because I get that benefit after every card I play for the rest of the game. A great engine building card for sure, and the added bonus of being able to traverse any terrain for just 2 dice is immensely good, and it's worth a couple of points to boot. So it's just one of the best cards I've ever been able to play into my caravan, my creature caravan. So this is why the Bat Rider is my most favorite card. And so now you have seen my top 10 favorite cards from Creature Caravan. What are yours? Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys again next time. Bye.